Good ball played in for Tony Morley. Oh, he must be! And it is! Peter Will!
Hello and welcome to Gather Round Again, an Aston Villa podcast brought to you in association with GatherRoundAGasLitLamp.com. Aston Villa 5, Hibernian 0. So Aston Villa have absolutely handed out a bit of a beating this evening to Hibernian on our return to European competition in the first time in over 13 years. We have absolutely romped to victory there. The team that started off the game was very, very strong. Only one change from the team that also blew Everton away 4-0 at the weekend, with Matty Cash making way for Diego Carlos and Ezri Konsa sliding into right back. Everyone else was absolutely the same. And it was kind of one-way traffic from the beginning. Those of you who saw Neil Lennon's quotes where he agitated for some bruising treatment to be meted out to John McGinn. That didn't really happen. The Hibs players really couldn't get to grips with the Aston Villa team. We were really just passing, they were chasing shadows. We were just passing it around them. Ollie Watkins opened the scoring with a wonderful header. Lucas Digne had another kind of man-of-the-match type display on the left-hand side with another 2 or 3 assists, I think, today. 3 assists at least. For the goals, Lucas Digne just being worked into some magnificent positions. Ollie Watkins with a couple of headers to open the scoring, and then Leon Bailey also with an uncharacteristic header at the back post, also from a Lucas Digne cross to make it 3-0 by half time. Then at half time, I think there was a quick substitution where our old friend Robin Olsen came into the side, and but even that, my friends, could not impact the outcome of the contest, as Aston Villa scored a further 2 goals in the second half, with Ollie Watkins again assisted by Lucas Digne scoring 1, and then our old buddy Bertie, good old Bertrand Traore, swooning and dancing his way around the hapless Hibernian left back who brought him down. And Douglas Luiz dispatching his second penalty in 4 days successfully into the corner to make it 5-0, as well as old John Duran. We also saw appearances from Matty Cash and Traore. So, I mean, quite honestly, I was really thinking that this would be a lot closer than it ended up being. I really did think that perhaps we would have a little bit more competition from the Hibs, particularly playing at home, particularly the raucous atmosphere that we were kind of anticipating didn't really materialize. And I think that ultimately the golfing class was absolutely huge, and their manager, our old friend Lee Johnson, formerly of the Bristol City parish, was incandescent, I think, with rage throughout, which was absolutely beautiful. I particularly enjoyed that. So I dare say, without being too hyperbolic here, that Aston Villa should be comfortably through to the next round of the competition, and we will be, dare I say, barring some kind of absolute calamity next week at Villa Park, I think it's probably safe to say that we can start looking at booking our tickets, booking our flights, booking our hotels for a European journey in the Europa Conference League. Massive respect, actually, to Aston Villa and to Unai Emery today for making sure that they were really professional. We saw what happened last season at Stevenage at home. When these fixtures are not taken seriously, we can see how that can go. So kudos to Unai Emery, who obviously is the European master somewhat. Congratulations to him for putting out a full-strength team and taking the competition completely seriously and making sure that there was really no chance whatsoever for Hibs. And perhaps now in the second leg with a 5-0 cushion, we can consider some rotation and maybe seeing some young players come into the mix. And I'll get back to the young players conversation in a moment. But the major headline here is Aston Villa tonight played in European competition for the first time in 13 years. And that is, considering where we were a few years ago, kind of dancing along in the, well, not even dancing, we were being slapped around in the middle of the championship with the likes of Scott Hogan and James Bree lining up for us. No disrespect meant to those chaps. It's just an incredible level of progress in an incredibly short amount of time. For us to have got 5 European football within 5 years of the owners, NSWE taking over is quite astounding, and also to be in with the opportunity or the possibility, not to get too far ahead of ourselves, to at least compete for this trophy does really put us in good company. So that's kind of that for the Hibs and the Villa game. You'll need to take a look, obviously, at the latest episode of the Gaslit Lamp podcast, which is available now on all your usual streaming platforms, for a more in-depth information and a review of the 4-0 Everton win. I'm not going to talk about that too much here, but what I will talk about is the news that's been breaking in the last couple of days regarding, firstly, the sale of some of our kind of crown jewels in the academy department. So first of all, we had the sale went through finally today of Aaron Ramsey, bigger brother of Cole, younger brother of Jacob, who was joined Burnley on a permanent deal for £14 million. Aston Villa, of course, retain a buyback option on the player. I have advocated on this show and the other main podcast that Ramsey may be someone worth keeping around, given the injuries to Coutinho, Buendia, so on and so forth. That is not the way that we've gone. And obviously the £14 million in pure profit from FFP certainly allows us a lot of wiggle room. And we do, again, have the opportunity to bring back Aaron Ramsey, should we wish to, on as part of the buyback deal. But I suppose the question is really, what kind of example does that set when taken into the context of the other 2 exits, which are heavily rumoured? The first one being Cameron Archer moving on an £18 million deal to Sheffield United. David Ornstein at The Athletic reporting today that a medical is due to be scheduled for that potential transfer. And then, even more shocking than the Cameron Archer, because I suppose there's been whispers that he would leave, is the rumoured or mooted transfer of Jaden Philogene for £5 million to Hull City. That one I don't like, personally, particularly as I got to see Jaden Philogene in person in the preseason tournament over here in the US, where Villa played Newcastle, and Jaden Philogene was really one of the standout players throughout that whole tournament, not just in the Newcastle game. And Unai Emery wanted him to stay around. So unless the player is agitating badly for a move to Hull City, which is possible, I don't know, it would seem as though, again, particularly with the context of Buendia having gone down, particularly with the context of Philippe Coutinho now having gone down, it seems a little bit risky to sell this player for £5 million, particularly given that he has been such a big part of our preseason preparations and also came onto the field. You'll remember during our first game of the season away at Newcastle, although that was obviously in a losing fight. So that one is a bit strange to me, particularly as the fee seems pretty low. If you're getting 18 million for Archer, and then you're topping that up with a 14 million from AJ in terms of pure FFP profit. Also, spare a thought for Keenan Davis, who also is apparently scheduled to leave for £2 million to aforementioned Hull City, which would again be another free hit in terms of FFP. It just seems strange that we would let Philogene go as well when we are so thin on the ground. Now, obviously, I'm speaking without having a full grasp of all the information available. I don't know who the planned incomings are. I don't know how long Buendia is going to be out for. I don't know how long Coutinho is going to be out for. So there could be some mitigation. Or it could just be that the lad, Philogene, has kicked off and said, look, if I'm not starting, I want to go. I don't know. But it does seem, again, with the backdrop of those two huge deals for Ramsey and Cameron Archer, which is a hell of a lot of money, by the way, for two players that have never started a league game in either league for Aston Villa, neither the Premier League or the Championship. That's an amazing amount of money to get 14 million and 18 million respectively for those two. Plus the 2 million for Keenan Davis and whatever we got for Wesley, who's also moved along to sunnier climes up in Stoke in the Championship. So is it an emergency in terms of FFP that we needed an additional £5 million from Jayden Philogene? I don't know. But I particularly, having seen without trying to be disrespectful to Hibs here, particularly having just looked at the quality of, or not so much, the quality of the Hibs players on show, it seems like this competition, if this is the kind of level of competition that we're looking at throughout at least the early stages of the Europa Conference League, it seems as though players like Philogene in particular, and Archer obviously is gone now, but had he stayed, Cameron Archer would have really been able to fill their boots in this competition and build up some valuable first-team exposure, first-team minutes, first-team experience. So we would get a gauge as to whether or not they're ready to contribute to Aston Villa. All well and good them both doing really great things on loan in the Championship. All well and good them doing really fantastic work in pre-season. But the proof would have been really to see them in an Aston Villa shirt competing in meaningful competition. We may not get to see that, but in Unai we trust. And not going to finish this podcast on a downer, because this has been a historic day in terms of us being back in Europe for the first time in 13 years. And not just back with a bang, baby. Hibs 0, Aston Villa 5, a hat-trick for Ollie Watkins, who was filling his boots. Another penalty scored by Douglas Luiz, and of course our old friend Gingerbread Bailey, also on the score sheet to make it 5-0. So the main headline here is Aston Villa are absolutely flying. We are, again, barring some kind of miracle, going to be winging our way across Europe for the foreseeable future in the group stages of the Europa Conference League. So it is reason to celebrate. It is a great day. If you look forward to as we look forward to the Burnley game at the weekend, we'll be interested to see if Aaron Ramsey plays any part in that. It's just absolutely fantastic to see Aston Villa back. It's fantastic to see us back in Europe. It's fantastic to see us winning in Europe. It's fantastic to see Ollie Watkins banging in a hat-trick in Europe. And it's just really nice that we know, again, barring some kind of miracle, that we are going to be in the Europa League, Europa Conference League proper next month. All right, that is all from me. If you are looking for a Burnley preview, please check out the main podcast feed, which is available on all your regular podcasting platforms. I've been Craig Storrod. This is Gather Round Again, an Aston Villa podcast, and up the mighty Aston Villa. Bye-bye. Thank you for tuning in to Gather Round Again, an Aston Villa podcast. Please like down below and subscribe. Up the Villa.
Daly and Atkinson on one of those great runs. What a run by Daly and Atkinson. Atkinson again. And it's Dwight York.